From inside the Banner offices along the Inner Harbor, it is the Banner Baseball Show. Paul Mancano and John Meoli live on a Tuesday. John just got very fired up for the It Is. How you doing?
Good morning, Paul. That was my morning stretch.
This is our earliest podcast ever.
Yeah.
9 a.m. It's a time I'm not used to waking up, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, spring break.
You're a father of two. You're used to waking up this time, probably hours earlier before this.
Yeah, we do this fun thing now where I wake up at like 5:30 and just wait until 6 o'clock to pass off our little boy Milo to his darling mother to start his day. But like that half hour, every time I'm doing it, I'm like, this feels pointless to me. Like, I'm glad she gets that extra like little bit of sleep. I usually get a little more sleep after, but
wouldn't you love that extra half hour though at that point?
I would love for him not to wake up at 5:30 for all of us.
Yeah.
Listeners included. As I told Paul, I'm not going to be able to string together two sentences. We're going to have a good time.
You've got your coffee there. I've got my Celsius. I feel like we can do an okay job.
Yeah. You're probably going to get there faster than me with Celsius.
Probably. It'll go directly into my veins. Today, we're going to talk about the Orioles' rotation struggles. We'll also talk about the bullpen and the collapse that they had on Sunday and whether that's a problem going forward or perhaps just a blip. But first, John and I are going to talk about the importance of one Adley Rutschman and one Gunnar Henderson to this Orioles team, because 15 games in, the Orioles looked like a lost baseball team on offense heading into the weekend. They have their game rained out on Friday. I think the overall morale of Orioles fans was in the tubes going into their 2-game series, what should have been a 3-game series against the Blue Jays. And through the first 4 innings of the Saturday game, they looked lifeless. And it wasn't until Heston Kjerstad hit a 2-run homer to pull within 1, and then Adley Rutschman tied the game on a monster solo shot with a bat flip included that really breathed life back into this team. And John, just from a moment standpoint, we've seen last year, we saw, even in their tough second half, we saw little blips, little signs of life, like the Anthony Santander Grand Slam, stuff like that brought people back up and got them to believe again. And that was certainly the first moment, I think, in 2025 where you could point to and say, this team feels like the 2023 team.
Yeah, and I think it kind of starts with who did it. You know, there was even a point in August, I believe, last year where I don't know if it was a walk-off. I know it was like a game-winning home run from Adley Rutschman, and it was like, all right, where's this been? Adley Rutschman is not having that kind of season right now. He's having a better season. He's having a more representative season than he did in the second half last year. But I think that there's a real case to be made that it's not necessarily the moments, because, you know, these things happen. I remember every time, you know, Chris Davis would get a hit to left field, Buck Showalter would ask, he's hit a homer the opposite way. Like, does that mean he's getting going? And like, at one point, maybe, but like at some point, you just need to not have to get going all the time. You just need to be able to do it. You know, same thing for Adley Rutschman. It's like, this needs to just kind of be the thing they do. I think about that Anthony Santander home run. I think about the moments that could have sparked this last year and didn't, because it wasn't a thing that a moment could fix.
Yeah.
And I feel like this team is not necessarily in the category of needing a moment. They just need to get things going. And I think broadly, I was trying to, you know, workshopping this down in the back alley as all the kids were running around yesterday we saw the sunshine yesterday. It was crazy.
It was nice.
Everyone was outside playing, and it was like, they're kind of playing whack-a-mole at the moment. You know, when you have a lot of things that aren't firing, one of them will start and then the other one will falter. And when you're a really good team and you know you can count on, you know, 2 or 3 facets of the game, just be there every time, you're going to win, because even when something goes badly, you have the other stuff to fall back on. Right now, they're just trying to, like, you know, they get a good start, they don't hit. They hit, the bullpen gets weird. Like, the bullpen pitches well, it's already 5-0, doesn't matter. Like, stuff like that is fixable to me. I'm not sure it's about moments specifically, but that was a moment that I think they needed.
Absolutely. That's a great way to put it, playing whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
I mean, especially Sunday's game, too, there had more moments like that where Gunnar Henderson slides head first into home, and the Orioles take I think that at that point it was a 6-3 lead, and he's fired up and the team is fired up. And then one of the moles popped up, and that was the bullpen. And they couldn't extinguish that fire, because they are very much an incomplete team right now. And whether that's fixable through roster moves, through guys getting healthy, is TBD. But right now, they are not clicking on all cylinders. They have very much the signs of a team that is disjointed. And I think the most important thing for us to see is the offense getting back, because that's a unit that we said before the season you thought might be one of the best in baseball, if not the best in baseball. And they just have not played like it. Part of it could be the weather. Part of it could be Gunnar Henderson's slow start, Colton Cowser being out. But to me, this team is going to have to score a lot of runs, given what we've seen from the rotation. They can do things there, and we're going to talk about that, but they're going to have to score a lot of runs regardless to be in the hunt in the AL East.
Yeah, and where they've struggled recently in those first 2+ weeks is that, I said it a couple of times, there's multiple ways to score, like 5 runs a game. One is to score like around 5 runs every game, and one is to score 9 runs in one game and 1 run the next game. And like that's still, and that's not a recipe for success. And before the game on Saturday, Brandon Hyde was talking about how it's been fits and starts of them not swinging at pitchers pitches, not giving away at bats, and I don't think this team is very chasey right now. I don't think they're chasing a lot. I think they're just not handling the pitches they can handle, and they're doing pitchers favors and letting them off the hook. And they've faced some good pitchers so far this year. Let's not kid ourselves, but you're not going to get where you want to go if you are an offense that's not consistent.
Yeah, and one major way that they can get consistent is to have their top 2 stars, Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson, play more consistently.
Yeah.
I think it's no coincidence that going back to 2022, the Orioles have been a good team since Adley Rutschman arrived in the big leagues. And it's no coincidence that in the second half of last season, they were a 500 team when Adley Rutschman was at his worst. You need both those guys, especially with the status of the pitching staff. You need both those guys to produce. And I know that sounds obvious. They're 2 superstars. They're 2 all-stars. You need your best guys playing well. But you look at their numbers in wins compared to losses in their career, and this is, again, obvious. If your team is winning, typically your good players are playing well. But it's pretty stark.
Yeah.
In Orioles wins in Adley Rutschman's career, he's hitting .282 with an .838 OPS. Gunnar Henderson in those wins hitting .318 with an OPS over 1,000. In losses, Adley is hitting .233 with a .684 OPS. Gunnar Henderson in Orioles losses is hitting under 200 with a .608 OPS. He's batting leadoff a lot of the time. He's starting the things on offense, so it kind of makes sense. But it is just crazy to think about how important those 2 are to the Orioles offense, because if they're not going, the offense can't go. And if they're hot, they can carry the Orioles to a lot of wins.
Yeah, and I think it's partially just all the things you said. They're talented. They're obviously your best players, so when they do well, everyone's going to do well. But they're also tone setters in a lot of ways. These are 2 players who quite literally have been the example of what this front office wants people to do at the plate since they joined the organization in 2020. They were at the alt site as little babies. Gunnar more of a baby than Adley, and they were the ones who helped workshop the way that the Orioles want their young players to hit. They went to minicamp or extended that year, and were the people. They were like, hey, this is what we do. Like, watch Adley, watch Gunnar, and that's what still is the case in a lot of ways. Gunnar's start is weird. I think his average exit velocity is 99 right now. It's hitting the ball really hard when he's hitting. He's also striking out a lot, and he's not really walking. That's not a recipe. That's not Gunnar Henderson. I don't think that's something that anyone's going to go crazy about. But when they are doing the things that they need to be doing, working walks, getting on base, hitting the ball hard in the air, that type of stuff is contagious. And when they do it together in tandem, that creates a good inning. That creates situations for guys to get pitches behind them, and those types of things feed on each other. But it's crazy. This is 5 years later. These guys are still kind of the standard bearers of what they're trying to do offensively, and what doesn't work, you can tell.
Yeah, exactly. Those 2 are the Orioles go as those 2 go.
Yes,
for the most part. All right, let's talk about this rotation right now, because it is in dire straits. The Orioles enter today dead last in starter ERA in Major League Baseball with a 5.30 ERA. They are dead last in strikeouts per 9 innings. They are second to last in innings pitched. Right now, they have 4 guys in the rotation. They don't even have a 5th guy. They are looking at Saturday.
My God.
It's a TBD. Zach Eflin is on the injured list. with the lat strain. Tomoyuki Sugano has a 3.86 ERA, but he has yet to go more than 5 1/3 innings in 3 of his starts, and he has just 5 strikeouts in 3 starts. Cade Povich, his ERA dropped dramatically when they changed Jorge Mateo's dropped ball in center field in Kansas City from a triple by Bobby Witt Jr. to an error that took off a lot of earned runs, made a lot of those runs unearned. So his ERA dropped to 3.60, but he has yet to go, or he's gone more than 4 2/3 innings in just one of his starts. And he gave up 12 hits in that outing against the Royals. Let's not forget that. Dean Kramer has struggled mightily. 13 earned runs in 14 1/3 innings. Charlie Morton, who gets the start tonight, 13 earned runs in 13 1/3 innings. John, this team right now, this pitching staff, I know they are missing their top 2 guys, Grayson Rodriguez, Zach Eflin, but the guys behind them have struggled so mightily that I have serious concerns about their ability to turn things around.
Yeah, this is. I've been trying to take it like case by case. I'm gonna do some stats for you.
Give me some stats, John.
All right,
Make me feel better about it, perhaps.
One of them, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Let's see how my technology is working today. How does 3.59 as an ERA sound? Does that sound good?
Sounds very good.
Okay, that's Dean Kramer's ERA in the last 3 years, every other month, but April.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. It's something in the 5s before May 1st. And this year it's going higher than that because it's something with an 8.
That's crazy.
I kind of give him the benefit of doubt. I'm also like the type of person, just like I'm predisposed, I think, to give Dean Kramer the benefit of the doubt. So I'm not going to not do that when the time comes. The good news is that there's no one to take him out of the rotation for. I mean, I think that this has been a tough stretch, but he's one I put in his own little category. Like, there's going to be a start where Dean Kramer like pitches into the 7th inning, and it's not going to be remarkable, but it's going to look very similar to what he's done the first 3 starts. It's just that like he's just not going to get hit around. Are
you guys Man Bun brothers?
Yeah, somebody not chased me down. I was like walking around the stadium last year after a game, and someone was like behind me the whole time, and like it took him like home plate plaza to like the left field foul pole area of like outside the stadium before asking if I was Dean Kramer, and I was like, no, I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry. I'm not.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I had no choice but to tell Dean, and he appreciated it. Should have just signed as him.
That's okay. I get confused for Brett Hollander all the time, so
that's a good one.
Yeah,
that's a good one. But where I do carry concern is with Charlie Morton and Tomoyuki Sugano.
Yep.
I think we're in the early stage with Sugano. Like, it wasn't a lot of fanfare, but that was his first, start at Camden Yards. There's probably some feelings around that. He's facing a team he's already faced before. So I'm cautious to keep giving the benefit of the doubt and kind of putting qualifiers on somebody who's really experienced pitcher and should know what they're doing. But him and Charlie Morton, I think there's a case to be made. Charlie Morton especially is way below his normal zone rates, and he's walking guys more often than he has. He's striking out guys more than he has. He's getting the chase, but he's also not throwing the ball in the strike zone as often as you would think that he would. Yeah. And there's just something about the idea of pitchers who don't throw the ball over the plate that makes me wonder if they think they cannot do that. If they're trying to be very fine and not miss over the middle and not, Tomoyuki Sugano, that's going to be his game. He's also walked as many guys as struck out 5, which is not good on either. It's not good in either sense. So I think both of them have it in them to figure it out. But I think when you are not throwing the ball over the plate and in the zone as much as you have in past years, which is Charlie Morton's case, I don't have zone data for Tomoyuki Sugano. I can't imagine that he was hovering around like 50%. Right. Zone rate in Japan as he's walking nobody and giving up no hits.
Yeah, 1.7 walks per 9 or something ridiculous.
Yeah, I find it hard to believe that would be where he's at. So I look at those. Cade Povich is the opposite. He does throw the ball over the plate, like to his detriment sometimes. Yes. But that's what the Orioles want him to do. That's what he's been told to do. He's been told he has the stuff to get guys out in the strike zone, and he kind of does when they catch the ball. So you put them all in different sizes or in different boxes, and I think the Dean Kramer's in his own box. I think Cade Povich is going to be better than he has been, and I do wonder whether the desire to throw the ball over the plate and the ability to locate in the zone the way that they need to at this stage in their careers is there for Sugano and Morton. That's an issue.
Yeah, and I asked Cade Povich in Kansas City after that 12-hit outing when he didn't walk anybody, gave up at that point 13 hits and then knocked down to 12 after the Jorge Mateo error.
Yeah.
But I asked, Drew French had spoken pregame about the desire to get guys to throw more in the strike zone, not just Cade Povich, but other guys. And he said that's something that we want to do because, it all kind of filters from watching Corbin Burns last year pitch to softer contact. Corbin Burns' strikeout numbers have gone down every year, but that's by design. He's pitching to contact a little bit better because he's able to go deeper into games. I remember Grayson Rodriguez in spring training mentioned that was something that he learned. And that's something that Drew French, the pitching coach, is trying to instill in guys. And like you said, they believe Cade Povich has that ability to get guys out in the strike zone. The problem is, as a staff right now, they are not striking guys out. They're dead last in Ks per 9. And as partly because of Cade Povich's ability to not walk guys, partly because even when Sugano, has 5 walks, that's not ridiculous for a starting pitcher. They're third as a rotation, as a staff, in walks per 9 innings. So that's pretty good. The problem is they're giving up a ton of hard contact. Sugano is in the 38th percentile, according to StatCast, in hard hit percentage. He's also in the 1st percentile in strikeout percentage. Cade Povich, 16th percentile in hard hit percentage, so he's doing even worse in that category. 41st percentile in K percentage. Dean Kramer, 31st percentile in hard hit percentage, 20th in K percentage. Charlie Morton is in the 2nd percentile in hard hit percentage. He's getting hit extremely hard. So the problem is they're not pitching to soft contact. They're pitching to hard contact, and the ball is flying out of the yard, and that is concerning.
Yeah. When you mention that about Charlie Morton, and you clearly get hit hard over the plate when you throw the ball over the plate. If you are getting hit hard, it makes me think of someone that we probably thought a lot about at one point in our lives, and not recently. His name's Blaine Knight.
Oh,
did you think I was going there?
Not at all.
Okay, so
never made his debut with the Orioles.
Never made. No, he did not.
Unlike Cody Sedlock,
he made the big leagues. He did. Big time pitching prospect. That was in the era of like most teams were using computers and data, and the Orioles were not.
Yep.
So it was pretty exciting in the moment when he was, drafted. People work on other teams on their drafts, like, oh yeah, crazy spin rates, ridiculous spin rates, like great curveball, great this and that.
Big arm out of Arkansas.
Yeah, signed for $1 million. Don't think he gave up a run in Delmarva's first month. Got to Frederick, and I learned about a phrase like he's either like Eminem. He's like miss or middle. Like he's trying to be really fine and throwing nasty pitches, and they're not over the plate, and then he gets behind, and he has got to come over the plate with his fastball, and it gets hit. I'm monitoring. I'm monitoring the situation. Whether that I think Charlie Morton's far better than what we're talking about. Blaine Knight. Blaine Knight. It's no slander. I'm very fascinated to see how this plays out, because this is also the type of thing when you've been pitching this long, you have the ability to make like a slight tweak and just figure it out. And but if we're sitting here, like if we're watching this game tonight at like 7:30 and there's been like 5 guys on in 2 innings and Charlie Morton's thrown 50 pitches already, that's going to be another data point that says, is this going to be what they want it to be? And that's something worth monitoring.
Yeah. And at this point, they are all through 3 starts. They start this series tonight. They have Charlie Morton on the bump, and Zach Eflin being out of this rotation leaves them with very few options to replace him. You were right, John, when they lost Zach Eflin. I thought perhaps that would be Brandon Knight's moment. It wasn't. They just took the
Brandon Young. Brandon Knight. I think there was a basketball player.
There was a basketball
on UConn
point guard. Yeah. Did he play for UConn?
Wait, no.
Brandon Knight was definitely played point guard for the Suns at one point.
That sounds right. Brandon Knight. Let's see.
I don't know what
brought my
college
computer out today.
This is outstanding live podcast.
Yeah, Suns.
Where'd he go to college?
Kentucky.
That makes sense.
Yeah, there you go.
Under Coach Cal.
He plays in looks like Baloncesto Superior Nacional. That sounds like Spain to me. I don't know.
Yeah. Unless he was going to be Pat Connaughton, I don't think that Brandon Knight was going to play. was going to pitch for the Orioles.
Puerto Rico. There we go.
Is Pat Connaughton still in the NBA?
I think so. That was always fun.
That was, yeah.
That was always fun. I never got to do that, but that was always fun when everyone would just go down to the Wizards game and ask him if he wants to play baseball. He's like, yeah, definitely. Definitely. Can I please keep my signing bonus if I say yes?
You thinking about going back to Aberdeen?
Yeah, I thought about it. I just meet me back in my hotel. It's called the Four Seasons. I stay there. I stay at a luxury hotel every single night, but I would love to play minor league baseball.
I would love to go back. All right. Well, Brandon Young, it wasn't his moment either. Because the Orioles just went with an extra reliever. They, because of the off days, have the opportunity to extend that, kick that can down the road, but they're coming down now unless they get rained out at some point in the next few days. They're looking at Saturday as the next day where they would either be pitching, I think, Charlie Morton on short rest, or they have to get a new arm. And it might have to be Brandon Young at that point. That also, ironically, is a game where the Orioles are giving out a David Rubenstein bobblehead. And the fact that they won't have a starting pitcher for that game, unless it's a guy making his big league debut, and David Rubenstein is the one being honored with the bobblehead that day, is a little bit funny. They just don't have any easy answers right now to fix this rotation. I mean, Kyle Gibson is now our savior, apparently. He's now the one that we are looking for to save this Orioles rotation. He only threw 47 pitches in his AAA start last Thursday. Trevor Rogers still hasn't pitched in a AAA game. Chase McDermott still hasn't pitched in a game.
Yeah.
I don't know where they go from here. I mean, I think I was really looking at this past weekend and saying, if the Orioles got swept, if the starting pitching looked really bad Saturday, Sunday, Mike Elias might have to make a trade. Like he hates back against the wall kind of moves, but not talking maybe a Trevor Rogers type, panic trade, but at some point they have to do something, or is Brandon Young just going to be the answer here?
He could just be the answer. I'm fascinated to know when not just Kyle Gibson, but the rest of those guys who are in their ramp up, how close they are. If they started throwing mid to late March, you would think they're getting close to games right now. I'm not sure. I can't imagine being like the people who are trying to figure out like how we fit all these rehabbing guys into a AAA like situation and get everyone on turn and keep everybody their innings. Like that's probably just a lot of people like scratching their heads and like putting their hand on their forehead, being like, I don't know what we're supposed to do here. But at some point, these guys need to get into games and they need to make themselves options, because I'm not in the category that they're going to make any trades. I think in the past, especially with the draft being moved back, like early trades are challenging, and Mike Elias has said in the past that like Memorial Day is kind of when teams take stock of this type of stuff. I don't know who has a useful starter that wouldn't want to keep him in the middle of April.
Right.
But I think what you're seeing with the Orioles kind of hoovering up all these pitchers that seem like they're fine and might be able to get guys out at this stage who get knocked off other rosters is kind of a sign that they're always looking to find something that's going to work, because they're kind of due for that. I don't know if they're due for one of those. Not to say that those like happen all the time, but I don't really think you can say there was one last year. There were a lot of little ones. There's a Burt Smith moment. There was a Colin Selby moment, I think, if you want to call it that. There was a little Matt Bowman moment, and he's still having that moment, I suppose. But I don't know if you want to call him that. I think they're due for one of those like, who is this guy type things. Maybe we're finding him with the guy's last name's Blewett.
Yeah, that was the fact that they claimed a guy with his last name being Blewett. That's like there was a Pitt kicker years ago, the University of Pittsburgh kicker whose last name was Blewett. Yeah, to be a pitcher or to be a college kicker or NFL kicker with the last name Blewett, just a tough racket.
Yeah, I mean he's never gonna be able to top the Orioles, who had never developed a pitcher for like ever drafting, like using a first round pick on somebody whose name was DL. Like that was
his name was DL.
Whose name was DL. That was tough that's going to always be tough to top, even after they changed it.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe they changed DL to IL just because to DL Hall. So he wasn't stuck there.
And I think he's still hurt.
Yeah. I think he is, unfortunately, for the Milwaukee Brewers.
Yeah.
I mean, right now it would be okay. I think it's in any other year, in any other situation, especially the last couple of years, Brandon Young coming up and getting a start or two is not the end of the world. It's just the fact that the other four guys are struggling as much as they are that makes it incredibly hard, because usually a guy comes up, to make a spot start and you just kind of don't have any expectations for that game. You kind of don't chalk it up as a loss, but you say, we'll see what the kid has. And obviously, like we probably won't feel good about our chances to win, but you don't want to do that right now. You can't really, you don't have the margin for error right now to do that. So, I mean, maybe I agree with you. I think it's incredibly hard to get a team to trade one of their pitchers on April 15th. Sandy Alcantara, I don't know, but at this point, it's going to be difficult for them to do anything to this rotation to really get themselves out of the mud other than guys pitching better. And I think back to, was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago? It started the 2022 season when they traded for Cole Irvin, when they traded Dale Hernandez to the Oakland A's. And Cole Irvin's first 4 starts in Baltimore went so poorly. He had a 10 ERA and they optioned him.
Yeah.
The Orioles don't have many levers to pull here. There are not a lot of guys that they can option. But you also do wonder if Charlie Morton makes his 4th turn in the rotation here and struggles again, and his ERA is over 8 still. I know they signed him to $10+ million, $13-15 million, but at some point, you have to make a decision here. The guy can't keep going out every 5th or 6th day and losing you games.
Yeah. This is challenging because they don't have a lot of like wiggle room. You say they don't have like a lot of like margin for error, and like that's true. And also, it's just tough to push back on. But I feel like I want to.
Yeah. Morton signed a $15 million contract. So.
Yeah, which is a lot. He's made that's real money. That's also. I think this is too early for like those types of moves, but like we did see that with Cole Irvin where they said like pretty quickly no. Like last year, Trevor Rogers, it was pretty quickly like this isn't happening. Yeah. They also had, I think, a little more flexibility to do that. I think where it
options are a big
options are a big thing where you can do that. I think there's like a big difference between concern and like the desire to do something about that. Like, I don't think they're sitting there watching these starts and being like, we nailed this. This is exactly like we thought it was going to be.
They can't be.
They're definitely not. I mean, I can't, as true as you can say something that you don't actually know to be true. Like I can say that they're not sitting here being like, yeah, definitely. This is good. Let's keep like, this is exactly what we thought it was going to be. It just feels like you're still at the point where just natural improvement and regression can make it so that it's not this bad. And that's not anything to hang your hat on. And like, that's not like fun to hear. But I think we said last week, because we were sitting here, that like this team could like go like, 8-2 in their next 10 games and you'd think differently. Like they've just basically treaded water since then. Yeah. And every time you have a conversation about them, it's pretty dedicated. It's pretty predicated on what happened the night before. And there's been some inconsistencies with the starting pitching, and that's been consistent, I guess consistently not as good as you want it to be, but it doesn't feel like they're getting to the point where they need to do something. It just feels hard to accept that it's just going to be bad.
That's fair. It is difficult to accept. I just worry that I thought back to, we're not heading this direction, I don't think, but 2018, the first month of the season, thinking it's hard to accept that this is going to be this bad because of all the talent that they had, and then it was that bad. So I just worry they just have to tread water. They can't let the train come off the tracks, because if the train comes off the tracks at this point and you are 10 games below 500 as you enter May, I mean, you just can't be in that kind of situation in this division and expect to climb out of it.
Yeah. It's going to be, I think if we get into that stage, like May, if this is still happening in a month, if guys who have come back aren't better, if there's not some kind of improvement and consistency offensively, I think that's when you start to see the need for something to happen. But this team didn't give itself the sentimental space to tread water or not, or worse than that for 2 months. And that's a really uncomfortable place to be in, because they just don't have they didn't build up the cachet this offseason to do this.
You well said. Let's talk about the bullpen before we get out of here. First off, the Orioles haven't had too many high leverage situations this season, so it's difficult to kind of grade the bullpen. It feels like a lot of their games have been blowouts one way or the other. So through the first couple weeks of the season, the same caveats that applied to the offense could also be used to apply to the bullpen as well. Small sample size, playing in weird weather. Bullpen stats are, it's the same thing. One reliever is phenomenal, and then he gives up 3 runs in an outing, and then all of a sudden he's terrible.
Yeah.
But to me, this bullpen feels right now a little bit backwards because their low leverage guys are actually pitching really well, and their high leverage guys are not so great. And the low leverage guys, you have to start with Brian Baker. He has been baking. 1.23 ERA. He's throwing his slider more. He's getting more run on his fastball horizontally. I asked him, he threw one that registered 10 inches of horizontal break. And I asked him in Kansas City what that, where that came from. And he was like, that was just luck.
Yeah.
It just came out of my hand. He said somebody in the, pitching staff or in the pitching analytics department showed that to him. And he said, I have no idea where that came from.
Cool. Never again.
Never again. But he is averaging between 4 and 7 inches of horizontal break, which is really helping him. He's not being used in many high leverage situations, only 2 high leverage situations. But the way that he is pitching is going to force Brandon Hyde's hand. He is going to get more opportunities, I would think, in 7th and 8th innings.
Yeah, but even the value, there's value even in where him and Matt Bowman are pitching. In that, in theory, these are spots where when you come in, you're the first guy out of the bullpen. In theory, you're keeping the game close still and allowing for what happened on Saturday to happen, of like the offense to kind of click into gear and do have a little fight back. That's something that this team was missing in a lot of ways last year, and these games would get away. That hasn't really happened this year in those middle innings. And I think it'll be fascinating to see how it evolves, because I personally, like, I was looking up before we talked, and all these guys who kind of contributed to Sunday's loss hadn't given up any runs or even let an inherited runner score until that point. So there aren't a lot of situations to judge these pitchers on, and I think they've been largely fine in them, but there seems to be a need for there to be opportunities for these guys to pitch in high leverage situations, and B, for them to kind of have their roles, because you see in bullpens all the time that if guys don't kind of know where they're going to be pitching, it gets a little dicey. I think you're seeing that to an extent, and this is like a chicken and egg thing, but like CNL Perez, like, he could be the first guy out, he could be like mopping up. I think there's like a common theme to that, which is like, if you can't pitch well, this is when you pitch. But I'm fascinated to see how that plays out, because these guys are earning more opportunities. And I think we're talking about good, not great guys who are kind of behind them. And that means there might be opportunities to take those roles.
Yeah, the good, not great kind of guys that we're talking about. I mean, Felix Bautista, when he's at his best, is great.
Yeah. So let's talk about the kinds of relievers there are. Because like there's that. Would you say there's like 12 guys who are like 2012 or 2022, 2023 Felix, like every year around the league? Maybe 12, like 10, 12 who are just like, that guy's three outs, high fives. Yeah. Like, pretty gonna happen.
Maybe 10 guys like that.
Maybe. And it shifts. Some guys, 1 year Josh Hader could be that guy, and 1 year he's not. It's weird. Maybe Felix Bautista isn't that guy this year, but he's back to being that guy next year. Maybe he is that guy for half the year. And then there's a lot of guys who are just like pretty good most of the time. Mm-hmm. And I think the Orioles have a handful of those types. CNL Perez was one of those guys. Now he doesn't feel like those. Yeah. I think Sir Anthony Dominguez and Gregory Soto are those types of guys. Yennier Cano was probably miscast as one of those like top tier guys at some point in his life, and he's probably pretty firmly in like the next tier.
All-star in 2023.
Yes, very surprisingly so, and very deservedly so. Yeah. And then I don't even know that there is like a difference between like the up and down guys and the guys who are just, pitching well in the moment, because up and down guys can do that too. But I think they have not charitable. I think they have like, I don't think they have like any filler in there. Maybe you can say Colin Selby's more of an up and down type, but like there are enough good relievers in this bullpen to get the job done. I think they're challenged by like the moments that they don't. And if you're not one of those like guys who gets it done every time, to judge on the one time every 2 weeks where it doesn't work, it feels unfair, even though it's your job. You got to just do it. It's challenging.
It is. And you want to get to the point. Every playoff team wants to get to the point where by October you have a 7, 8, 9. You have certain roles, you have guys in, and those guys are delivering. And right now the Orioles don't have it, but I don't think most teams have it. You know, Sir Anthony Dominguez has been very good so far this year. He has yet to allow an earned run, but at times he's looked a little bit shaky.
Yeah.
Gregory Soto has looked shaky, and then he allowed 3 earned runs in Sunday's game and in part of the bullpen's collapse. And then another guy who has been performing very well in kind of the lower leverage situations is Matt Bowman, who signed a minor league deal with the Orioles this offseason, has a 1.23 ERA, just like Brian Baker. Yeah, this team right now, before Sunday's game, the bullpen had been very good. And it feels like a night-to-night kind of guess as to who's going to be good and who's not. But I think you're also right, John, in that role of playing mop-up duty or to pitch in those middle innings, to be the first guy out of the bullpen is important right now, especially the way that the rotation is pitching. I mean, it feels like a starter has come out in the 5th inning and left traffic on the bases in 80% of the games so far this year. And it's been incumbent upon Brian Baker or Matt Bowman to then get them out of that jam. That is suddenly a crucially important role because you don't have Corbin Burns pitching 8 innings. You don't have Grayson Rodriguez out there going 7 innings and completing an inning.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fireman duty, and it's a lot of pitching in 5th, 6th innings.
Yeah, and they've allowed only 5 inherited runners to score this year.
It's impressive.
As a group. 2 of those were Albert Suarez, and I believe that was in 1 out. Yeah, he pitched once and cashed in both the runners he inherited, and that was that. We're probably not going to see him again for a bit. Yennier Cano did twice in his last 2 games, so that's 12 games, 11 games in between where 1 inherited runner scored.
It's very impressive.
And I wonder, I truly wonder, and this is like, I don't want to be like, I felt like I was like unfairly cast as like the Craig Kimbrell guy last year because I just wasn't I was not, by virtue of not being anti Craig Kimbrell, I had no choice but to take the positive side on Craig Kimbrell and
carry
like
his banner.
And thank you for saying I was right about something earlier, but like that was something that I was not right on. It turned out that everyone else was right. So I say that to say I don't want to be like the Gregory Soto and Sir Anthony Dominguez guy, but like Gregory Soto gave up 8 runs in his first 3 outings as an Oriole and had a 1.10 ERA at the rest of the season. He's given up, he had 1 outing this year. Like how good do these guys have to be for how long for them not to be guys that weren't good enough and like were terrible at trade deadline acquisitions last year? Like, am I going to say that like the Gregory Soto trade was good because like, I don't know, Moise Chase is good too. Seth Johnson's good too. Like,
right.
But he's who they got and he's pitching fine most of the time. Like, I don't know when the point of like, okay, I now deem you to be like a good reliever is going to be.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot more than 15 games.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that much. All right, that just about does it for our show today. We have more baseball, more home Orioles baseball this week. We're going to be at some of those games. Hopefully it'll be a little bit warmer than it was this past weekend. I was frigid in the press box on Saturday, John. Just couldn't do it. It was just, that was brutal.
It was cold. I was there before the game for some pregame stuff. It was cold. You're right.
Uncomfortable.
I was not properly dressed, so I left.
Yeah, that's a good call. We would not go to the splash zone at that point. Thanks so much for tuning in. At John Meoli is his handle. I'm at Paul Mancano and at All Banner Sports. And of course, do subscribe to the Baltimore Banner. $1 for 6 months. You can get John's outstanding newsletter, Inside the Dugout, where he keeps you up to date on all things Orioles.
Yeah.
I feel like we should do a promo like that. We can cut a promo with you, John, right?
Yeah, let's do it. Sometimes I even mention that we do this podcast in the newsletter when I remember to.
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we won't be doing any more 9 a.m. podcasts because I'm tired.
Yeah, I feel like it went okay, though. Someone told us that this was good. Someone at the ballpark told us this podcast was good.
That's excellent.
I think everyone should know that.
That's excellent. Please tell us if you think this podcast is good. Write us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and we will read it out here on the show. Thanks so much for tuning in. For John Meoli.